Alyssa DeWeese, and I find efficiencies in employee benefits. I work with employers on a one-to-one basis to help them find efficiencies in their employee benefits. And today I am going to go over trends we're seeing in 2022. A big buzzword is work-life balance. And I want to find out exactly what do employees and job seekers mean by work-life balance. It may mean something different to me than it means to you, so let's dive in. So anyone looking to hire employees in 2022 has most certainly heard the term work-life balance. And LinkedIn's survey recently shows that work-life balance trumps even bank balances for job seekers. So this is pretty incredible. 63% are seeking a work-life balance versus 60% for compensation and benefits and 40% for culture. So those are the top three categories that we are seeing right now in 2022. If you've ever watched me before, you know that I really drive towards defining terms. Work-life balance is a very vague term. It may mean something different to me than it means to you. And here in this survey, they are defining it by the freedom to work where and when you want, and support and empathy from the employer. Times in these surveys, we see the surveys reframing the questions in several different ways. So one of the ways that LinkedIn really tried to drive this home and define work-life balance from the employee's perspective and the job seeker's perspective is to ask, what is your happy place? Where is your happy place when you think about work? And employees are more satisfied when they can be flexible about the location. So some employees do like to go into the office from time to time. Other employees don't want to go into the office at all. So giving that flexibility in the job description to allow for the most efficiency. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I'm the employer. I know what works best for all my processes. I get it. Framing this has to be very specific and predefined, and all of the expectations of the new hire has to be set. The onboarding process is taken for granted. And by onboarding, I mean your HR taking a new hire through an onboarding process with all of that nitty-gritty paperwork and getting them enrolled on benefits, making sure that the employee understands what's expected of them, their primary workflows, primary responsibilities, job duties, job descriptions, all that stuff has to be set up properly. There's nothing like a first impression. An employee is most likely going to assess your culture in a very short amount of time and hold on to those biases throughout their entire employment career with you. So making sure that all of this is set up before you even hire someone, making sure you have all those processes in place. Another thing is making sure that all of the employees, all of the new hires are getting the same information, or at least it's very consistent. You don't want one new hire onboarded incredibly well and then the next one half-assed because you're busy or your HR got overwhelmed. You really have to prioritize this process. I know setting up these systems can be painful. In the long run, it will pay dividends. You will have an exponential improvement on your employee satisfaction and retention and costs associated with hiring. Employees really want to feel cared for at work. They want to be offered more benefits, more options. It's not something that you can really fake as an employer. It really comes from the top down. So if the executive team, if the founder, if the owner really, really cares about their employees, that will bleed through and ooze through to the other members of your team. They're 3.2 times more likely to be happy at work, and they're more likely to refer their friends to you. And we all know that these friends are top performers. If that employee that is happy, that's talking about you, is a top performer, it's more likely that their friends are top performers as well. We've spent years and years analyzing millennials versus boomers. I know I'm a millennial. All of the conferences and seminars and education that I went to on conferences over the years have all been about millennials and trying to figure out what we're doing and all the trends associated with millennials. So I'm really happy to see that the pressure is coming off of us and onto Gen Z. Now everybody's trying to figure out Gen Z, and 66% of Gen Zs say they want more mental health. Most likely your plan already has some mental health benefits, just telling you on the sly. But you need to communicate it. You need to send out intentional reminders. Employees don't want to come to you with their mental health questions. They don't even want to go to your HR person. Having a third party that employees can ask questions to is paramount with mental health. Think about it. Your employee doesn't want to come to you and say, excuse me, I want to know about behavioral health for my kid, or, they feel it's a very uncomfortable topic. So have someone that can help you out there. And we have all heard about the Great Shuffle, the Great Resignation. It's pretty incredible. 39 million resigned in the first 10 months of 2021, the highest number since 2000. And more than 40% of workers globally are thinking about quitting their jobs, according to the Microsoft survey. Now, if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I have been over the Microsoft survey, and I did put in some additional information here just to remind you, or in case you missed it, or in case you're new. The average work span is increasing. This is a trend we have been seeing, and it's gone up especially since the lockdown over COVID. So because everybody was shut down, everyone went online to do their work, and we saw an increase over the past 2 years. Now, this trend is not decreasing. There are more calendars, or you could argue people are using their calendars more or more efficiently, or putting more things on their calendar. Regardless, we need to think about how employees are using their space at home, right? Our minds are such powerful association machines. So for your employees that live in a smaller space, it's going to be a lot harder for them to draw associations between work and relaxation and downtime. So giving employees tips, like for example, I have lights that I turn on, specific lights when I'm in work mode. I have specific music that I can turn on to do specific tasks. I have different triggers in my life and different rooms that I've set up where I can turn on different modes in my mind and shut off modes in my mind, because I have worked from home for a while. So I have learned some of these tips and tricks over the years. Now, not all of your employees have been working from home for all that long. Maybe they've only been working from home for the last 6 months, or the last year, or the last 2 years. These are all educational topics and tips that we can remind our employees about and really make sure that we're being empathetic to their current situation. You think your employees may be sitting back, relaxing by the pool on their laptop. Your employees are frustrated. If you're frustrated, they're frustrated. So this is a new environment where employers are really attempting to manage their employees online, and maybe some things have gone well and maybe some things haven't gone so well. It's not going away. This is not going away. You are going to have to figure out how to communicate better with your employees online and come up with results-driven metrics for every task. Now, in the past, we have done this with sales and perhaps gotten into marketing. It's easier to track that because it's all based off of money and accounting. You may have to invest in some additional software. You may have to invest in project management systems to track your employee's project. You may have to be more diligent about updating your systems and everybody be more consistent. You may have to do more training with your staff on the way that you want them to enter information into the system. I know it's painful. I know change sucks sometimes. But in the long run, you are going to be able to measure results for your employees more consistently, and you're going to be able to give that positive feedback as well as critical feedback. And this is what is going to drive your efficiency, your profits, and your growth in the future. Because let's face it, employees that stay with you longer, your sales and your retention is going to be better. If you figure out this culture piece remotely, you are going to grow. And culture is a selling point for employees. So it's 2 times of an increase in job posting and job review and applications. Employees are looking, and employees are pickier. And the pickier the employee, the more likely they are a high performer, and it's somebody that you probably want to hire. 67% engagement boost when a company mentions their culture. Employees want those first 3 things we talked about. We talked about culture, we talked about work-life balance, and we talked about benefits and compensation, making sure that all of those make sense. And of course, I have links. I'll post these down below to these specific surveys and all this data so you can nerd out on it if you would like. I took snapshots. What are employees saying about work-life balance? So again, I want to drive towards what is the definition? What exactly does that mean? So number 1 employee value proposition is a good work-life balance. And LinkedIn made it a point to talk about, why do we call it work-life balance? Why don't we call it life-work balance? It's a good point, followed by excellent compensation. So of course, employees want to get paid for work. I mean, right, that's why we all go to work. But making sure that the culture is positive and not toxic. I think employees, instead of saying what they want in culture, they're saying what they don't want. They don't want a toxic environment. They don't want to be micromanaged. And some of these online systems do make it feel like the employee, or do make the employees feel like they are being micromanaged. And there are ways around that. Less meetings. So here I have a typo. It is less, not let. Less meetings, being more efficient with your meetings, and also making sure that meetings are on time. Meetings are not canceled and pushed back constantly. I see that all the time. Meetings don't run over the time. So if you start running over the time, you need to be respectful of everyone's time. This is part of the work-life balance and the respective work-life balance, and respect of everyone's calendar, and making sure employees know that you value their time and that their time is valuable. Less meetings, more efficient meetings, making sure meetings are on time, meetings end on time. Anything that goes over is taken to a separate meeting, a sidebar meeting perhaps. There's a million things you can do to control those meetings better. Time to take care of important personal matters, making sure employees feel comfortable taking that PTO. 4-day work week. Employees have been asking for this for a really long time. It's something to consider. Counseling and mental health support services. Again, you probably already have this. Just communicating it. I think employees are asking for this because they don't know that their plans already have it. So that tells me that employers and brokers are not doing such a great job at communicating these to the employees. Wellness-focused culture, doing something to promote wellness, exercise, diet, mental health, all of those. And I have plenty of presentations on what is wellness, how is it defined. You have a wellness wheel, there's financial, there's more. I know most people think of wellness as a diet and exercise, but there's certainly more options to wellness. Empathetic leaders, again, making sure that you are empathizing, putting yourself in the employee's shoes, making sure that you repeat back what you hear from the employee. So part of being empathetic is making sure that the other person knows that you understand their current situation. And the best way to do that is to do some reflective listening and repeating back what you have heard. Also, following up in some sort of a written form can be super helpful. So how are employers responding? What are your competitors doing about this? Many are Pursuing personal development opportunities, making sure employees have access to personal development, coming up with flexible work support, coming up with mental health and wellness strategies, maintaining managers to lead or training managers to lead remote and hybrid teams, diversity and inclusion. So in years past, it seemed like about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago now, a lot of the HR experts were talking about presenteeism. Employees are coming to work, they're showing up, but they're not mentally present. So organizations were really focused on activity, and now the advice, part of the LinkedIn survey, was to consult with some professionals in HR, some high-level professionals, and talk about exactly what our organization's doing to measure outcomes. And that was their advice, was to get away from the thinking around presenteeism and performance and looking towards more results-based tracking. Focused on results and not hours. So would you rather have something in an hour that's really, really high quality, or would you rather have your employee take 8 hours on it because they're just filling time throughout their workday to fill it up and they're lollygagging and looking on Facebook? What if you paid them for that quality of work rather than, and meeting the deadline, rather than the time that they're spending? So making that mind shift towards results versus just putting in the hours. Setting boundaries, so making sure employees know that they can take breaks. That's part of the wellness culture. Turning off devices, making sure employees have the times of day where they're actually turning off their devices, and respecting employees. I work odd hours too. Sometimes I work at 4 a.m. in the morning. Just happens sometimes. But having some sort of delay delivery and letting employees know, hey, let's only send out emails between this hour and this hour. It helps certain employees that are a little bit more OCD tendencies, we'll say, not feel pressure to respond to the boss if they're sending emails at 5 a.m. Your managers, if they are sending emails at 5 a.m., that may cause some additional stress for the employees. So talking to your managers about, hey, let's not send out anything until after 8 a.m. or 7 a.m., etc. Associations that are created with work and home. I talked about this a little bit, making sure employees set up a workspace specifically, or if they're in a smaller space, coming up with tips and tricks to transform that space between relaxation time and work time. Removing live events and live meetings, making sure you record everything. It's so easy now with Zoom and all of these online platforms, recording your screen, software. There's a million different ways to do it. Yes, you can have live meetings, but making sure employees know, hey, if you have a doctor's appointment, it's okay. We're going to go ahead and record it for you. I am so happy to see this. Again, taking the pressure off of millennials and on to Gen Z. I remember when this trend first started and millennials were blamed for all of these changes, and now Gen Z is continuing the trend, and they are worse than we are. They're at 77% asking for flexibility, and millennials are at 30%. We're still quite a bit higher than baby boomers and Generation X, but at least, and I remember when this came out years ago, and the trends were millennials hundreds of percent more choosing jobs for flexibility over Gen X and baby boomers. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen those titles now. Gen Zs are hundreds of percent above us. So that's comforting. Tongue in cheek. Gen Z wants a culture built on mental health and wellness. So again, really, really focusing on wellness, this bleeds into the work-life balance. What does it mean to have work-life balance? It means having that flexibility. It means allowing for that time to do important personal tasks, making sure that you have understanding managers, that as long as the employee is meeting all the expectations and driving results for the business, they should be allowed to take that time if they're being efficient with their time and getting things done. It's, of course, if it starts bleeding into their work results, that's when you have those conversations. But if you've got a high performer, certainly make sure that you are allowing for that and advertising your mental health, because again, you probably already have it. You probably already have some wellness benefits already built into your plan. Make sure you communicate it. Well-being is consistently resonating, especially with women. So let's face it, most women in the household are the primary caregivers for pretty much everyone, including their spouses. And we get the task of going and picking up the prescriptions, picking out the food for the household, a lot of the shopping. So women just tend to be more focused on well-being because that's part of their responsibility for their household. So that's even shown here, increase in the share of job posts that mention well-being in 2019, and it's increased in company posts since 2019 as well. So those are pretty decent increases there. LinkedIn members are posting more about these key topics. So again, flexible work, well-being, company culture. Hundreds of percent more, 362%. Why? Because those keyword searches are coming up. So as we look back over the evolution of company culture, I really liked this timeline. We've got 1950s as rigid with hierarchies and smoking in the office. In the 1970s, women come into the workplace and the dress code gets loosened up. 1990s, I really specifically remember this. All the tech companies had started a trend with bringing ping pong tables, that was in the 2000s. In the 1990s, relationships between workers and bosses fray. And then in the 2000s, I specifically remember this when tech companies really started the trend of bringing in ping pong tables and soccer fields and volleyball courts and basketball courts, and there were game rooms and video games and slides from the third story to the first story, cafeterias. I mean, this really started a huge shift in company culture back in the 2000s. So I have shown this picture several times. I just love it. I think it is fabulous and hilarious all at the same time. So employers are picturing their remote employees sitting around in their boxers or underwear, pajama pants, or maybe even their bathing suits and working from home, where employees feel more like this. So oftentimes when people think of working remote, this is the picture that comes to their mind. It's very glamorous. There's a lot of posts on social media, work-life balance, working from home, working remote, working from the beach. It's glamorized, and it's not all roses. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. It can be difficult to work from home, and making sure that you build in those structures. And for employees that do have a harder time building their own structure, you are going to have to help them more make that structure and build education and training around how to set up their work desk, maybe some tips that they can do. Of course, everyone's different. Again, the music, the lighting, rearranging your desk, rearranging your workspace once you are starting work versus ending work. Some sort of trigger for your mind to start work and a trigger to turn it off. Also, changing clothes, making sure people are getting dressed every day, making sure that all of your meetings have the camera on. If people are hiding by turning their cameras off, it should be unacceptable, in my opinion. Everyone should be able to see each other's face. Everyone should feel comfortable with what they're wearing, how they look when they are supposedly ready for work. So there are boundaries that you should be setting to help the employee and to help you. Again, around meetings, around cameras, around what's expected in deadlines, what's expected with communication if somebody's overwhelmed, all those things. New job titles are hitting the market. So we are seeing a transformative workspace. And we have been talking about this for a really long time. We are seeing exponential changes in technology, software, and working environments, and what jobs are needed in the job market. So we're seeing a fracturing going on. We're seeing more contract work. We're seeing new job titles, and I'm really interested in this. So I just copied and pasted some interesting job titles that I found here in the LinkedIn survey. You can certainly download it below. I put in some links down below that you can check out to download this survey if you want to see everything. But we've got back-end developer, we've got search marketing manager, chief human resources, machine learning engineer, mergers and acquisitions manager, lots of mergers and acquisitions going on, talent acquisition specialist, user experience research, customer solutions engineer, lots of new job titles out there. So again, my name is Melissa DeWeese. I help employers find efficiencies in their employee benefits. If you want to talk to me, I have links down below. I'm happy to assess and do a free consultation for the first. It takes about 30 minutes over the phone. It shouldn't take too long. So you can set that up down below. I have links. I also have a survey that I would ask you to fill out first. It helps us make the most of our time together on the phone or over a Zoom call. And small to medium businesses are driving the market. So they make up the majority. 88% of companies are experiencing higher turnover rates than normal. So again, small business and medium-sized businesses account for 99.9% of the private U.S. workforce. You guys really matter. I want to make sure you have everything you need to be as successful as possible in this changing environment. So I look forward to meeting you. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Please like and subscribe. Make a comment down below. Share this with someone that you think will find it interesting, and I will see you next time.